Hi, I'm Brian, and welcome to the second part of my three-part retrospective on the solo albums of Jerry Harrison. The first came out in 1981, and that was called The Red and the Black, which was this furious funk fest. And we had to wait 7 years for a follow-up, lots of F's coming along here, follow-up, and that was 1988's Jerry Harrison and the Casual Gods, or Casual Gods. Don't know whether it was the name of the album or the name of the band, but this cover is absolutely striking, isn't it? And it reminds me a lot of those movies that came out around the same time with those titles I couldn't pronounce. One started with a K and one started with a P. Here's the inner. And this is a 1988 OG European pressing, which sounds really great on the Fontana label. So he's got this killer band, or are they Casual Gods, with him? Alex Weir, who was so funky and stopped making sense. We've got Chris Spedding on guitar, and we've got Bernie Worrell on keys, as well as many other top-notch musicians. So the big question must be asked, 7 years later, was it worth the wait? Let's find out. The first thing that becomes obvious when you drop the needle on Casual Gods is that it has a killer riff, it's got melody, it's got song structure, and it's got a push towards commerciality. And Jerry Harrison sort of takes this idea from Stop Making Sense and a million other places of adding the instruments one by one, layer upon layer upon layer. And so in this case, we have the iconic guitar riff to start, then the bass and the keys, the bass and the drums come in, and then the keyboards and the vocals. It's a one chord song, but who needs to worry about a second chord when the riff is this good? I love this song from start to finish. I used to play it in bands a hell of a lot. And I love that moment where everything else drops down except for the vocals and that distorted guitar sound. Absolutely beautiful. And then on the way out, we have this twisted solo which plays in the song, and it takes us out beautifully. One of my faves, absolutely superb. Song of Angels is up next, and on first listen, it may seem like a bit of a nondescript way to follow up Rev It Up, but what it does, it sort of provides a meat in the sandwich between the two big songs on this album, Rev It Up, and what comes next, Man with a Gun. But we get to about the 50-second mark in this song, and we're now starting to hear those Talking Heads influences come in here. We've got an instinctual understanding of groove and that drum sound of the 80s. The 80s drum sound also works superbly here. It doesn't always work, but it does on this occasion. And that then leads us into Man with a Gun, which is my favorite Jerry Harrison song, one of my favorite songs of the 80s, one of my favorite songs of all time. It's got such a gorgeous opening to it, and then we've got the layer upon layer upon layer. Jerry Harrison doesn't have the most dynamic of voices, but what he does have is nuance and soul and feeling. You know, on a wire, a high wire. She likes to balance on the knife. She says, on a wire, that is living. Ah, you could forget the rest. And I like later on as well. I said a pretty girl. I said that. Anyway, I'm not sure who or what the man with the gun is. All I know is the rules don't apply to them. So if you've got any ideas of who the man with the gun is, please chuck it below in the comments. I suppose my feeling or my reading of it might be it's the ability of love and infatuation to overcome fear, that sort of thing. And don't forget, you know, if you want to hear this song a little bit longer, to get yourself a copy of the 12-inch of Man with a Gun, because it has an extended, and I do mean extended, solo by Chris Spedding, which just works superbly. Then comes Let It Come Down, which could definitely find a home for itself on the second side of Remain in Light, if that side wasn't perfect enough as it is already. Because it's a dark and brooding sort of a song, but it's also got a sultriness and a funkiness to it which can't be beat. It gets under your skin. It's a slow burner that gets in there. And the complexity of this song comes from its seeming simplicity. The production and arrangement's really great. You get to hear every synth, every guitar, and it's absolutely perfect. And I love towards the end when it drops down to just the organ playing, and it's taking us onto the hallowed ground of Pink Floyd, Saucer Full of Secrets type thing. And it really works. It's a beautiful moment. And this is then completely juxtaposed by the third single, Cherokee Chief. A Cherokee Chief is like a Jeep, an SUV, four-wheel drive. In this case, it's very heavily armored, and behind the wheel we have a psychopath, a person on the prowl, a person who's going to do damage, and it's a really great insight into an evil mind. And the solitary slide guitar that follows the second chorus really has that sense of bullets whizzing all around the place. It's maybe that's just my projection, but it's dark, ominous, and very psychotic. Here's some of the lyrics. Got a bulletproof window, 2 inches of steel. Nothing gets to me. Sitting at the wheel. Got a big gun on top. Watch out down below. Watch out down below. No place in this jungle. No place I can't go. It's a powerful, loud rock song to finish side one. But it still comes out as very much an unsettling experience at this point. So let's flip over and go to side two. Side two kicks off with A Perfect Lie, which is 80s perfect power pop sheen. That's probably all I need to say about that. But what it does do is serve us up a great antidote's not a word, should be. It serves us up an antidote for the mania that came at the end of the first side with Cherokee Chief. And what I really love about this song is the production of it. All of the instruments seem to shimmer in the ears, like they've had vibrato put on them. And then the vocals and the backing vocals come straight down the middle and they're very clear. It's love it. The use of the female backup singer here perfectly also complements Jerry's voice. And I love the instrumental section, which brings us back to muted palm guitars, followed by sweet, funky bass in the keyboard section of the next layer. This layer upon layer upon layer. Gorgeous song and an ideal way to start up side two. Then we go into Are You Running, which is another great song, and starting to think, can Jerry do any wrong with the songs on this side? I really love the sultriness and the sexiness of the verse feel. There's beautiful keyboard going on, and I love those keyboard stabs and bends. Bam, bow wow, so whatever it is. I can't do keyboard, but it's like, on a guitar having a whammy bar and a wow wow. All of this is gorgeous, and that muted palm guitar comes back in, and the vocal is great. Love the sound of the guitars here. The chorus is great. However, I'm not a huge fan of the bridge, the middle eight, the bridge, whatever it is. But still, if you love Talking Heads, you are going to love this song. And that brings us on to Breakdown in the Passing Lane. And here we have, lurking in the recesses of side two, a song which to me is a bit of a breakdown. It's a bit of a breakdown. It's got that mildest whiff of filler about it. Ooh, filler. So anyway, ostensibly it's not a bad song. I mean, the vocals are cool. There's got a decent verse and a catchy chorus. But I get this sense as we're like a long distance swimmer who's got this finishing line in sight at the end of the album, the end of the line, but can't quite get there, really struggling to get there. The chorus does resuscitate this song, but there is another telltale sign on this, for me, and this is the presence of harmonica, which appears out of nowhere. Now, a lot of people love harp. I don't, most of the time. And although the playing here is absolutely accomplished, it's just not my sort of thing. So I'm not posing as an expert in the field of harmonica solos, by the way. There are better, more influential, more intelligent people than I who can tell us all about that. What I do love is it's got the panning of the guitars from left to right generally. And what we have in one ear, and it swirls around, is like a delayed sound of the guitar, and in the other ear, a clean sound, which creates this, again, this beautiful shimmering effect. So there's still fruit to be eaten or picked from the tree on this song. It's just not my favorites. And just as I think we're on a downhill spiral with this song, all of a sudden the swimmer gets a second breath, and it's with A.K.A. Love. I've heard this song so many times, and the reason for that is when my iPod switches over to alphabetical, then it's the first song on my iPod. I wonder if anybody else has a song which would come before A.K.A. Love. It's really got a cool, funky, sultry groove, and the use of that panning once again for all the backing instruments, the supporting instrument, is really wonderful. It's consistently engaging, and it's a brilliant use of the soundstage. The instrumental section in the middle is just ear candy, with that lovely slap bass, the sweet keyboards and the guitar and the drums, it's all there. And I particularly love the end section of the end section of the song where the keys drop out and it's just Jerry sort of harmonizing with himself with the sound of the slap bass, and the guitar sachets around from ear to ear. really cool. Then we move on to second last song, I think it is, We're Always Talking. And at the beginning of this song, it sounds like an orchestra tuning up, maybe like Sgt. Pepper's at the start. And I'm wondering why we've got the orchestra tuning up on the second last song. Surely this should have been earlier, but you can't get rid of Rev It Up. But I do wonder whether it was a slab at another hit single. And it seems, because it seems a bit out of place here. And I'm not sure whether the placement does the song any favors. I really enjoy the verse and the middle eight. But there's no chorus, and maybe that's another impact as to why it wasn't released as a single. The instrumental section, which develops a cool riff on the synthesizer, is absolutely beautiful, as is the spoken word delivery. It's awesome and lifts the song, but then it goes back to a double middle eight at the end, and to me, maybe this is serving as the chorus. I'm not sure. Good song, but maybe not quite there as much as a lot of the other songs on the album. And then there's the lyrics, which are quite simple as well. People like us, we're always talking, telling each other what might have been true. I hate to admit it, but sometimes I've been like you, and I can still love you the way you are. Thank you, Billy Joel. Let's move on to the last song on the album. It's a song that I've spoken about on another video. I think it was Bands That Avoid the Sophomore Slump. And the song is Bobby, and it's very disorientating, it's discombobulating, and it is following on with that idea that Jerry Harrison's last songs on every album is going to be a real challenge to the listener. He's not sending us off with a big, triumphal, mega power ballad or anything like that. Now, we've got Bobby. It's different to nearly everything else on this album, and I suppose if you were looking for a touchstone, it would be Man with a Gun, but it doesn't have that sort of melody at all. It's about a narrator trying to stop a guy from self-harming, but then while we're involved in that narration, we get to hear Bobby's voice, and it's chilling, it's cold, it's a slice of paranoia, and it's barking at us like a dog snarling, and it's absolutely brutal. Reminds me in terms of its intensity of The Gun by Lou Reed. It's frightening, and it's shocking, and it's compelling all at once. So that's the way Jerry Harrison Casual Gods finishes, and it finishes in a very strange way. But don't let that deter you, or maybe that will influence you to listen to it. I heartily recommend this album. So if you've only heard the singles, get into the album. If you've never heard Jerry Harrison, this is probably the best place to start. You get a lot of pleasure out of listening to this album, and reminding you that if music of any size, shape, sound, or song of angels gives you pleasure, then who am I to argue with your opinion? If you'd like more of my opinions and want to come on this journey with me a little bit more, there's lots of album reviews up there. There might be one or two in there that you like. But until next time, I hope you're doing really well, staying cool, and bye now.